Hi, my name is Andy. I'm doing a tutorial on how to develop an Android app for using fragments on a phone. Um, Basically, this is a revamped tutorial, almost exactly the same as one that was published in developers blog, Android developers blog. I don't know, around when 3.2 was released, 3.0 and 3.2. This was a way to make fragments compatible on older devices. So right now this emulator is actually running Jelly Bean 4.2, but I can also run it on um, Android 3.0. I can run it on Android 2.3, and it all look the same. I think actually as far back as 1.6. It should technically all look the same. The only difference would be how the menus display. In this tutorial, I'm also updated their tutorial with putting in Action Bar Sherlock so that you can also have the UI of Android 3.0 Plus added into a Fragments app. So there, if you're looking for the similar tutorial, it's the Shakespeare one, and it doesn't really look all that great. And the reason for it is because it's just the code flat out. Here's how you do it. But I just simply updated it with um, the Action Bar Sherlock theme um, and changed it out. I'm also going to build on this app for the next one, and it's actually how to change the fragments. It's still using their scroll view, but it's just a view. What I'm going to do in on an upcoming tutorial is change it to where instead of the scroll view, they're individual fragments, and it'll be replacing the fragment with a colored fragment. Let's say if you click on blue, it'll show blue. What I've done now in this one is that it says you have selected the color blue. Um, I'll show you how I did this app and also how you can view two separate fragments on the same screen by on a phone as well. It's not really a good idea on something that's in portrait mode. Like splitting this screen in half would not be a good idea. However, on a tablet, you can totally do that because you got a lot of real estate. So to show you what it looks like, if you're running in an emulator and you want to do this, it's Control F11. You can rotate the emulator so that it shows up in landscape mode. So when you select it, it's going to change it to color red, green, purple, yellow, blue. So that's how this app is going to work. And the way it works is this side's a list fragment. This is a scroll view that you're putting in, essentially in a placeholder that's going to be a frame layout. So it's just a named frame layout. It's actually not actually used as a frame layout. It's just used as a placeholder. So I'm going to break down how this app works. So I'll close that out. And I've labeled this app DualPanes. And the reason why I've labeled it DualPanes is when you're in horizontal mode, you have dual panes. And it'll work in a tablet. It'll look exactly like that, but bigger. And it scales actually quite nicely for a tablet. And so for this example, you have 5 different classes. This colors list is basically it's a simple class with just 2 strings in it. So the first string I've labeled as colors. If you're going on the Shakespeare example, this one's called Shakespeare, and this one's called dialogue. So I kept the dialogue the same. And you can write whatever you want here. Now you can also create, like if you're going to do strings like this, you can create them in a value called strings, and you put it into this file as well and reference that. It doesn't really matter. This is just how this tutorial was used. Both come out exactly the same. Now, a key part of this tutorial is whatever you have up here. If let's say I have 5 items, you have to have 5 items on the bottom. And the reason for that is later in the code, I'll show you. I'll point it out. You're selecting position. So this is position 0. This is position 0. This is position 1. This is position 1. You don't actually have to program that. You just say call position, and then it'll do that. you have to reference the position in, you'll see it'll be called show details. So first class I'd like to go over is the main activity. This is the one that's actually setting the content view of layout support. Now, the reason why I have this is that this is your standard one. This is what happens when the app is launched. This class is called. I'm using a Sherlock action bar, so I reference extends the Sherlock fragment activity, and this should all look familiar if you've developed any app, and same with the set content view. What's different here is because we have two different views, if you're going in horizontal or in portrait, landscape or portrait, you have layout, which would be portrait. I have the same exact named file, and so it's referenced here. So if the device is in landscape, it's going to call out this because it's in layout land, and it has to be named layout land. Or if you want to reference a tablet, you can do layout land large or something like that, and that'll just single out a view for a large display. Now, there's nothing really any different from these two, except if you open up the portrait one, it's just a fragment inside of a frame layout. Now, if you open up the landscape one, I have a fragment, which is the same exact code as what's in this file, but the difference is here's a frame layout, which is just going to be a placeholder. It's actually not used as a frame layout. So you just basically give it an ID, and then you want it to be 50%, so you give it a weight of 1, which, since it's width-wise, you do 0 pixels on the width, and then it's going to match the height of this linear layout, which is matching the height of the device. So that's how the app is laid out. The next step is to actually put in your code. So this activity doesn't really do anything except it's the one that's launched. So if you go into the Android manifest, this activity gets this extra line of code. So the action is the main action, and it's going to be the one that's called when the app is launched. So it's going to get a launcher and a main. It's the main activity. We also have another activity that's going to handle the fragments and how they get swapped out, and that's this details activity. Since it's running inside and it's not doing anything until the app is launched, there's no special actions or categories that you have to put into this activity. You just need to reference that it's an activity. If you don't do this, the app will launch and then it'll crash whenever you push a button. So you have to reference this as well. So let's get into the dirty part right here. And first one I'm going to go over is the titles fragment. So this is what's going to be the list of the on the left hand side if you're in landscape, or the one that gets launched in portrait mode. So you have to set in criteria whether this one it's your dual pane. Now it's just like a window pane, you have 2 of them now. So you can set the width of those if you want into these layout things, but you have to reference it in the code if you want it to swap. So it's a fragment, it's a list fragment, so it's no different than if you were just do a fragment with just a list of things. It's not going to do anything. Same as a list activity. If you want to how it's going to be. The difference is we do on fragments on activity created, not on create. So you change this, but most of it, this all looks the same, including the set a list adapter. I'm just using a simple list. This is, you don't have to actually make your own list, but if you wanted to make a custom list, this is where you would change it. So get activity, this would normally be this if you were doing a list activity. Now you switch it to get activity. You specify what type of list you want, what type of text you want, and then you don't even have to actually, you can just take this out if you don't want to, but if you want a certain type of text, you can do that and reference it here in your layout folder. And then what do you want to list? You can put a string up here if you wanted to. You can do what we did in this one is use your reference a list in its own class, or you can even put a list in your values and reference it there. It doesn't really matter, but you have to reference it somewhere. And then you have these little, this is going to be specific to this type of app where you're going to have some kind of, well, is it going to be a dual pane app, or is it going to be vertical or portrait mode? So that's what these things, saved instant state, you're looking to see if there's any kind of saved information from last time you ran the app, or if you just want to reference it as a new. So this is saved instance state does not equal null, which means if it actually has been, you ran before and you have it, then you're going to set this value, it's just an integer, to 0, which the position 0, so that's why it shows up when you launch the app. It says blue, like it's when you're displaying your details fragment, it displays that this is the color blue. Then if you're in dual pane, you want to set the list view mode to single. You probably really don't even need this line right here. Then you also want to set the show details, which is actually going to be called on your on list item click right here. Let's see. So now here's where it's going to get a little different. So normally on the list item click, you can, if you want to switch fragments, which is what I'm going to do in a couple tutorials, you're going to be setting up your clause right here, your switch clause. You can reference another thing, which is what the tutorial that the Android developers use, is you can reference this, it's method. You put the method down here, and then you put it, like if it's dual pane, do this, if it's else you do this. So this is what's happening if it's in portrait mode. So you have the new intents and everything like that. Basically, you would put this up here, and you're going to reference the switch clause, where switch position, and then case 0, case 1, case 2, whatever, however many items you have in your list, you would go from there. So that's what's different here. And what we're dealing with is, since we're dealing with fragments, we have fragment transactions, and we have a fragment manager, and so this is what's actually doing to replace the fragment, where when we click it, it's going to fade in. So that's why we're using this transit fragment fade. Replaces the details fragment, which is the placeholder, with whatever your new fragment is. So as you'll see in the details fragment, what we're going to be switching is going to be there. And now we have to reference the details fragment as well. So if it's null, we're going to set the details fragment to a new instance, right? So let's go and open up what the details fragment is. Now this is what's going to be displayed on the right side, or it's going to be the new display if you're in portrait mode. Basically, it's not really, the bundle is basically, a bundle is just a little bit of information that's going to be transferred from one set of code to another, one class to another class. So that's what we're setting up right here. Is we're setting up this this index, and that index is, you know, what position are we on when we launched up the app. So Then the next is since it's a fragment, we're doing an onCreate view with a layout inflator, view group container, bundle saved instant state. And then this is what's actually being shown. You can put a fragment in here and it'll, if you wanted to actually put a different fragment, you would put that there. If you wanted to actually show, this is showing up a scroll view. So there is no layout for the display that we're showing on the right hand side or the new fragment. This is just a scroll view. This is how you would use Java to create a layout. Personally, I don't like doing it this way, and that's why the next tutorial will be to get rid of this code and replace it with an actual layout. I prefer the layouts because I'm not a natural born developer. That's not what I do as a day job. I like order, which gets provided for me in the layout. I like being able to view that way of code to build it, because I'm more of a visual person than a text person. Alright, so last but not least is the activity that's going to handle the transition. So that's the fragment activity here. It's not a lot of code. Basically, if the orientation is in landscape, we're going to set up. If it's not, well, it's going to run the titles and the titles fragment and the details fragment as two separate entities rather than one. So the way it works is that if it's in landscape, don't do anything. But if it's not, we're going to actually run it as the new intent, where it's going to launch a new one. If it's in landscape, it's going to just replace what's on the right. And then basically here's the argument, or the bundle that we referenced to in the details fragment, is this get extras and that set arguments. So when you run this, it actually runs, the emulator runs pretty slow, but if you run it on a physical device, it should run pretty fast on anything modern. Even probably 1.6 or higher will run fine. So I'm going to actually do that as, let's see, I'll run it on an older device to show you what it looks like. Of course, I don't have one. We'll do a honeycomb tablet. How about that? We'll run it on tablet. Oops. There we go. So while that's loading up, I'll just describe how I used Action Bar Sherlock. So you need the library for Action Bar Sherlock in order to be able to reference it and use it. You basically change your fragment activities to Sherlock fragment activities, and then your regular activities to Sherlock activities. That's how you're going to get each view to have the action bar at the top. Also, you have to reference it as a theme right here. I'm using a custom theme that I built using another tool that I used in another video. Basically, it's in each one of these I have a theme that I've downloaded, I customized, and it builds it, and I download it. You extract the folder and you put it in, and then you have that theme. But you have to specify whether or not your theme is going to be an Action Bar Sherlock theme, or if you're going to be using the native 3.2 plus code where you're using an action bar. That will only display on newer ones and not on older devices. So you have to, when you go into styles, you'll see this is what the theme looks like. You basically import this styles XML. This is all built for you. So this is a Sherlock theme, so it's a Sherlock light dark action bar. I've customize the color of the action bar, but the rest of it is basically holo theme light. So let's see what the app looks like in here. So it looks exactly the same. The other thing is the text is really small because we didn't set a property in the scroller what text size we wanted. We could have replaced this with a layout XML and gone off what color text we wanted, whatever. It doesn't really matter. You can either use Java or the layout XMLs to do your layouts. It's just whichever. It's really a personal preference. For me, I prefer layout XML. I seem to just understand XML a lot better that way. So yeah, so if you have any other questions on this tutorial, I'm going to be uploading it, which is probably going to be the more useful part of it, so you can break it apart and take bits and pieces that you need out of it. So I'm going to put it on an online storage where you can just download a zip file with it in there. But if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment in the area down below, and I will respond as quickly as I can, and hopefully as thoroughly as I can, as sometimes I realize I'm not exactly the most clear person to deal with. So hope this helps. If